in studio right now, Richie Baccellieri. I would say one of the world's most renowned handicappers.
That's pretty funny. I didn't know you were a stand-up comic.
Richie, it's great to have you in. We had Mike Palma on in hour number one, and we were really looking forward to this conversation. Before we get into how you help break down the numbers here for March Madness, I think one of the most pressing topics that I've been told about is Metallica or Led Zeppelin. Which way do you go there?
You must have been talking to Mr. Pauly.
I always say that my information is that this is a heated debate with you.
Well, there's really no comparison between the two. I mean, granted, give Metallica their due, but Zeppelin is Zeppelin.
Zeppelin they would be the number one seed.
They would be the
overall number one.
We should do a bracket.
Richie, let's talk about how you help out the guys here at Circus setting these numbers here for March Madness. Do you weigh in a lot of what you see in the conference finals? Like Duke now feels like the hot team coming in. Could have got them at 50-1. Those numbers are going to be long gone.
Well, my participation in the risk room with Matt Metcalf and Nick Bogdanovich, Chris Bennett, it's just to give a little color to the matchup. I provide a spread, and they're making their own numbers. They're doing all the work. I'm just giving them another perspective. Mm-hmm. As far as these conference semifinals and just the tournaments in general, I don't weigh a lot of the ratings for the outcomes of the games. But you hit on a team, Duke,
right?
That prior to the tournament, I had noticed that this team, now the freshmen, were starting to play a lot better. So I did give them some credibility before the tournament. So, yeah, Duke is a team that's definitely one of the hot ones.
Yeah, they feel like a team right now, Matt. They haven't lost in over a month.
Yeah.
Richie, as we were heading into the season, so I want to take you all the way back to before any of this
all
got
the
going.
way back.
We're going. So what team did you have power ranked much higher than you kind of view them now? Is there a team that, entering the season, either you just missed on or they just played way below expectation, whatever it might be? And then even conversely, is there a team that kind of rocketed up your power rankings?
Yeah, I kind of undervalued A&M coming into the season. I'm trying to pick some teams now that have some credibility, going into the tournament. And A&M is certainly one of them. I did not see Buzz Williams' team being as good as they are. But what happens when you're making ratings is after a game or two in November, you that's when you're doing all the work, the first 2 or 3 weeks of the year. So what you wind up doing is that you make the adjustment that you missed 3 weeks earlier when you were trying to handicap 360 schools in October during college football. I think I had a lot of the big schools being down, which they turned out to be. This is the lowest I've had the top teams in college basketball ever.
Right.
There's the gap between number 1 and number 40, maybe with the exception of Houston with a healthy Sasser, at about 7 points.
How do you factor that in? We'll find out if Sasser's going to go today in their conference final, because we do have injuries. UCLA has got a couple guys banged up, but they look like they could still be on the one line, even though they lost the Pac-12 title last night. How do you factor in those key injuries?
Well, Sasser plays a part in the team. It's probably worth about 2 points, all things considered. 100% healthy, playing at the best he can play for his 32 or 33 minutes a game. When you look at a game like today, where he might play at 60 or 70% of the number of his rating, and then he might also only play half the time he usually plays.
Right.
He has very little value in the spot today. Now that could be, he could play 25 minutes and play great, but that's what handicapping is all about.
Yeah, and again, I'm not Kelvin Sampson. I don't know why you'd play him today.
Yeah.
When you got a game coming up Thursday or Friday, and you're possibly going to be that 1 seed, maybe an overall number 1.
Yeah, it seems that playing him today is just he really wants to win the conference.
Right.
But again, I'm playing him, and then he's on the bench for 37 minutes out of 40. Didn't mean he really played.
Richie, I know probably the bulk and majority of what your handicapping is what you see actually happening on the court, but how much do you take coaching into consideration? Because some of these guys that are either very new to all this or guys that have just an incredible amount of experience heading into the tournament, does that affect your number at all?
It doesn't affect the rating once the season begins, and the example would be the kid from San Francisco that went down to Florida this year. It seemed he was going to be a very good coach, very good down to Florida. They bombed.
Right.
I don't take coaching into account for the numbers as if we're making numbers today. I probably should a little bit more, but you got to really spend a lot of time understanding I think I might have a little bit of a mental understanding when I'm looking at a matchup
Right.
or a rating, but overall, I don't. I probably should a little bit more.
I want to ask you, Richie, about a couple teams in specifics. One, I just feel like it's March, and this team had always been a hot button topic, and now I feel like nobody's talking about them. That's the Zags.
Zags.
They're 18-1 here to cut down the nets, and the old stigma is, they go out early. They haven't gone out early in recent years. Mark Few's getting to national finals and semifinals and Sweet 16s. Is the public, did you just write them off at the beginning of the year?
I like betting on teams that go under the radar. It's when Gonzaga is projected to be, special,
Right.
and we're going to win it all this year. That's when I don't want it. But now, I have Gonzaga actually rated tied for third of my ratings with Purdue, right behind Alabama, and slightly above, the Kansases, the UCLAs, the Dukes, the UConns. So I give them a chance, and I think they proved that they can play to a high level when they beat the crap out of that St. Mary's team,
Boy, did they ever.
who's a really good team, and they just went through them.
Yeah, beat them twice in the regular season and in the conference final.
Yeah, I bet them the time they lost in overtime, but we won't talk about that.
What do you make of this Tennessee team? They were just cruising along for the longest amount of time, then really, hit a bump, and then maybe people were trying to make excuses for them, I think, saying, it happens, it's going to happen, you can't just keep going on like they were. And then, now that bump turned into another bump and turned into another bump. Like, how do you view this Tennessee team overall?
Very talented. I mean, they go 9 or 10 guys. Obviously, the injuries to James and Key, and I think Phillips was out for a while, and the kid that's out now, Ziegler's out for the tournament. So, I mean, they've got a little bit of a tougher road to climb without the Ziegler kid. But once again, when you're talking about 40 teams wrapped up around 7 points, I mean, with the 3-point shot, with the randomness of the end of these games, I mean, they could easily be a Final Four team.
I got burned last year with Purdue and Matt Painter. I had them coming out of their bracket, at least getting to the Elite Eight, I believe I had. Then the St. Peter's game happened. So I got that's Jaden Ivey's gone. That team's it's different, right? But we just talked about coaching, and it feels like Purdue, who could be a 1 seed, you still get them in over double digits to win the national championship. Is that recency bias in my head that they just can't get it done?
Yeah, recency bias for you. I mean, look, I'm probably jinxing myself on today's game because I took the 8 with Penn State.
Okay.
But, Purdue has not looked all that good the last 6 or 7 games. I mean, they struggled in the first half with an Ohio State team yesterday that, they was 4th and 4 nights.
Yeah.
Now, granted, they did open it up as they should, but I'm not sure what to really think about them other than they're not the same team that we had seen in December and January.
So you have your own personal power ratings, but after the brackets get announced, will you then go and analyze and say, all right, this might be the third team, down for me or whatever it might, but this path seems easier than the guy that I have at 1 or 2. Like, how much do you put into that?
Yeah, I cheat the number as much as I can, knowing that it's a feel. It's 80% number and 20% feel. So I definitely give myself the opportunities to make some changes. But when you're putting the numbers up on the fly, and in the brackets, whoever they say, this team's playing this team, then it's make a number, say I make it 6, or I make it 5.5, and I might even cheat it down a little bit. Don't tell anyone.
Richie, I know that, and we talked about this with Mike too. I mean, Circa's going to be jumping. It's been jumping already for the conference finals. When people come into town, I got a lot of friends coming in town that come for the tournament. Would you have a do's and a don'ts for recreational bettors when they come see these numbers on this beautiful big board here? Maybe some pitfalls to avoid.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I've told people this for years. If you're looking to blow 500 or 1,000 in betting for the day of the week, blow it any way you want if you're having a good time. Instead of making 18 parlays for $20, make 5-team parlays for 40 or 50. Give yourself the chance to win a little bit greater and spend a little extra money. I mean, obviously, I'm not recommending people to play parlays, but I know people are going to do that, and they should.
I was going to say, I'm glad you say it is so refreshing to have someone that does bet at the levels that you bet say something like that because, 99% of people, that's the way they want to.
Look, just don't go crazy with it. Don't give your money away to the books. Make them earn a little bit. Make Matt earn his money. Matt earn your money.
Very quickly before we wrap up here, Richie, again, when we look at a team like Texas now, another hot team, they win the Big 12. They absolutely thrash Kansas. Could they be? Does it matter to you when you look at these numbers if they're a 1 or a 2 seed?
No, it's irrelevant to me where the seed. I don't even care who's playing.
Yep.
I mean, they could stick the SWAC in the Southland, all the teams in the tournament. I'm good with that too. I think Texas, the George, they might have an injury too.
Yep.
Off the top of my head, George.
Yes,
or did George?
But still, they looked fantastic against a team that Kansas didn't have their head coach.
Yeah, and they've had their downers too.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of who's getting hot, who's making the key shots at the end, and of course what the other team is doing. How many times, teams that shoot 35% against team that shoot 52, 35 is going to lose, more often than not.
That's the way it goes. Richie Baccellieri, real pleasure having you in studio,
Thanks.
my friend. And again, we get excited about it. It still gets you going at every March?
Yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy the seedings. I enjoy the arguments after which teams are going to get in. North Texas, I'd love to see North Texas get in. They got a shot. So it'll give me something to complain about later.
You know what? We're not going to let you out of here without who's going to win it all?
Yeah.
Who's going to win it all?
Probably the team that wins the first 5 games and scores the most points in the championship.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.